to another episode of Behind the Seas with Colin and Christine.
What up, everybody?
Thanks for having me back for another episode. Today, I wanted to talk about finding your purpose. So I think that finding your purpose is something that not all generations may feel is super important. I think that it's something millennials and younger that we kind of get made fun of for sometimes. Like, people often leave their jobs or change jobs frequently because they don't feel like they're doing something that they're called to do. And older generations will say things like, oh, in my day it was just a hard day's work. They call it work. That's what you're going to do. It doesn't have to be something that is some greater purpose. But I definitely fall into the camp of wanting the things that I do in my time on this earth to be part of that greater purpose as much as possible. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Colin?
Generally, I agree with it. I would say, I think one of the reasons that if like an older generation, for example, didn't necessarily agree with the assessment that you just laid out, it's just because of, I mean, think about it, like generations, our ancestors before us, like it was all about survival, right? Like even our grandparents, like the greatest generation, their whole life up until more recently was about trying to get through the Great Depression, World War II, not one, the Korean War, Vietnam, all these different wars, all these different economic things that happened as the country grew and changed. But even like before America was formed and before there were any countries or anything like that, like mankind was such in survival mode that was the purpose of life. Like, oh, I hear a lion out there, like I need to go hide in a cave or something like that. So I don't think it's necessarily surprising that the more advanced we get as humanity and as a race, that we have the capacity and the ability to start to think of things in a little bit different context than maybe anyone else before us. So that part of it isn't really surprising to me. I think it's just interesting to point out that may be where some of the fundamental differences are. You hear this all the time. Like, I mean, our parents' generation, baby boomers, were driving our grandparents' generation crazy with their rock and roll music, and they were totally different. And now everybody acts like millennials are the most different of any generation. It'll always be like it in that sense. But from your point in talking about purpose specifically, I think that may be one of the reasons that generations before us didn't necessarily consider that either a part of their work or a part of their life, is just because they weren't afforded the opportunity to be able to do that.
That's a good point. And the work that they have done really allowed us to be in this position where we can do things that are more dedicated to our purpose or something that drives us to feel like we're doing something we're passionate about or making a difference. I do hate generation wars, but I felt like I had to bring that up because it is definitely a part of this. It wasn't as common to hear people talk about finding their purpose in life until more recent generations kind of came up. So that's a little background on how people feel about finding your purpose. Now, a little bit of a personal story. I feel like I get in ruts from time to time where I don't feel like I'm pursuing my purpose. And ever since we found out we were pregnant, I have gotten into kind of a rut since then, because now I know that in July I have this big date looming on the horizon where my life is going to definitely change. And up until that point, it feels like everything is just getting me to that end date. Like, my purpose right now is to grow a healthy child that I can give birth to, hopefully healthfully, on July 20th, on or around July 20th. And that is totally fine as far as purposes go. It's obviously very important, but it has left me feeling a little bit stagnant in my own life. And I'm the type of person who just likes to feel like I'm going through personal growth or contributing to society in some way, very often. So the 9 to 10 month period that you are pregnant just does end up being kind of a long time to feel like that is your only purpose. No shade toward anyone who felt totally fine with that being their only purpose, but the type of personality that I have, that has gotten a little hard on me. So lately I've been trying to do some exploring to figure out what exactly my purpose is. And this is not the first time I've gone through this. Like I mentioned, I do get into ruts where I feel like I'm just kind of stagnant and not really pursuing anything. And then it just takes some intention on my end to get out of that. So I don't know if you've ever felt the same way, Colin.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that way before, but I can't say that I ever had quite the same experience that you have now. Obviously, that due date is something that's important to me, is a date that is hovering over us and everything, but my day-to-day hasn't necessarily changed as much. I haven't had to adjust as much. I do some things differently. I try to pick up around the house and just do different odds and ends here and there that just take away some of the stress and pressure on you. But for me, just like me myself, breaking it down, my life hasn't really changed yet. It will, but it hasn't really changed yet. So I definitely, again, like I've gotten into those ruts before, just trying to figure out like what is the purpose, like not just of my life, but the purpose of life in general. Just asking those questions, looking out into the sky, trying to understand like this whole big world around us and universe around us, excuse me. So yeah, I don't know that I've ever had to adjust in the way that you have, but I've definitely had to think about ways to, I think, motivate myself or to keep myself more engaged, because I think in a lot of the ways that you are, that I'm very much the same, where like if I don't feel like there is a purpose or that I have purpose, then it's kind of meaningless and doesn't really drive me. It demotivates me, so to speak. So yeah, that's at least a little bit about my feelings and background.
And that makes sense. I think part of it comes from a career aspect, in the sense that I know I will be taking 3 months off from work fairly shortly. So it's really hard to make future plans and like be on a path when you know that that path is going to be paused for a short period of time. Not only do I not want to put a lot of gusto behind any sort of plan, but people aren't trying to really engage me in any sort of plan because the future is a little bit more unknown from that date. And there's at least that known period of time where I won't be able to contribute to anything, which I'm very grateful and very excited for, but it did leave me with kind of this feeling of, okay, what am I really doing right now? And then I do think there's a combination of just being stuck at home with COVID. One of the ways that I feel like I'm pursuing purpose, maybe not necessarily in the way of contributing and giving back to the world, but purpose of living my life to its fullest. I like to travel and experience new things and just spend lots of quality time with Colin having those new experiences. And obviously it's been pretty difficult to do that from being in our house. We've made the best of it, but we have canceled multiple trips and things. So that I think has added to that kind of feeling of complacency and ick that I was feeling from that. So that's enough about the background on it. What have I done to kind of get out of that recently? So I pretty regularly meditate anyway. I like to use an app called Insight Timer, and you can pick different settings through the app based on the type of meditation that you're looking for. So you can do sleep meditations. You could do long, like 30-minute meditations. I don't know who's doing those. Power to you. I usually stick within the 5 to 10 minute range. But you could do motivational meditations and things like that. So there's lots of different options that you can choose from. And I actually chose some recently that had you kind of guided you through thinking what your purpose is through visualizations and prompts to get you thinking about it, because it is something that you do just need to dedicate some consciousness to in order to get yourself there. At least I feel like I do. So just a quick 5 to 10 minute meditation with those guided prompts led me to really remember some things that I had already known. And in the moment of meditation, I felt like I was getting a little bit out of it. But then I also journal pretty regularly, and that helps me get my thoughts and feelings out as well. So I went from meditating to journaling, and after hearing those prompts and then writing down some of my thoughts, it really helped me hone in on what that overall purpose is. And I came back to the same thing that I came back to when I've done this previously, which was my purpose is to help other people live a healthy, happy, fulfilled life. And what am I doing in my current life to help pursue that as my purpose? So I think this is another thing where you need an active mindset to just be thinking about what you're doing and how it's contributing. But it would be very easy for me to say, oh, I'm not doing that because I'm not working with lots of people one-on-one and coaching them, and there's not all these super concrete examples in my life of someone that I have helped go from being very unhealthy and very unhappy to like very healthy, very happy, and very fulfilled. But when I unpack it a little further, I can see that even through working in my marketing role, working with my teammates and being able to help them be less stressed in certain moments by taking work off of their plate, helping people grow in their career by providing them with feedback and guidance, and just being a positive force in my coworkers' lives is a way that I'm helping to do that. I just have to think about it that way instead of thinking about the literal ins and outs of my job, like emailing clients, client phone calls, like the tasks that I'm doing. If I put myself in the mindset of, okay, I'm going into work today, my purpose of this job is to make everyone's life easier around me and make everyone happier in their job, then I most certainly can do that and am doing that. So that's one way that I realized, okay, I just need to think about this a little differently and see that I am doing something that pursues my purpose. The other way is through my business, Sweat with Stods. While I might not be doing a lot of one-on-one coaching with people, I do have people regularly reach out about the content that I provide, talking about ways that they are applying it and using it and how it motivated them that day, etc. And I know I did a recent Q&A where people were asking lots of health and fitness related questions and just providing people with answers that are of quality instead of answers that come from someone trying to scam people in the fitness industry feels good to do. And I think that's another purpose that I'm pursuing, is making sure that people are getting the right information to help themselves in that way. So long story short, after putting a little bit of intention and thought behind this, I went from feeling like, wow, I'm super stagnant right now. Like, what am I even doing? What is the point of getting up every day and doing this? To, oh, this is exactly why I'm doing this. And while it might not look like the most literal translation of what my purpose is, I am still pursuing it in that way.
I love it. And I just really love how there's so many different factors, right, that you just mentioned about why you're feeling a certain way and why you think you should feel another way and what you want to do. And like, that's probably the most important takeaway from this conversation, is that like your purpose is yours. Like it's selfish. It's okay to be selfish. Like you are still a very loving person. You are caring and caring for our daughter the last 7 months and change now. So it's like people, I think, have a hard time sometimes being selfish and taking that time to really figure out what's important to them and just doing it allows you to be better for everyone else and for everyone else that is surrounding you in your life. Like if you're not happy and you're not all there, then your experiences with everyone else and the things that you're trying to do and help them, whether it's coaching like you were talking about or anything at work, it's just not, the quality is not going to be as good as it would be if you take this time to figure out something like your purpose in life. So I love that you were able to walk us through all that and share that with us. And I just think that it is a really important element to life that often gets overlooked because it takes a lot of work to figure out what your purpose is and what you're truly passionate about. And some people just, I guess, don't want to take that time.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to provide some concrete ways in which you could go about finding your purpose. And, maybe you won't have the same experience as me where you figure out what it is you want to do and then realize that you're already doing it, even though it's not as direct as you thought it might be. In which case, I would say, then you have your answer. You might need to explore different opportunities. So just to recap, what my thoughts and suggestions are in this case are, you need to put some consciousness toward this. You need to give it a little bit of thought. And if you have no idea where to start, a free meditation with prompts is a good example. Just doing some Googling, seeing different workbooks that are out there to help you discover what it is that you are passionate about and enjoy and what makes you feel good. Sitting and thinking about those through meditation and or journaling out those thoughts and answering those prompts are a really good way to get that introspection that you need. And I keep saying that, maybe my line of work isn't as direct of a tie as you would think, but that's another area where I would just challenge you to really think about it and break down what it is that you do, because it would be very easy to say, I need a purpose, or my purpose is to really give back to the world, and then you might get way too literal with your career options that can help you get there. Like, okay, well then I need to work in a medical profession because then I can very literally see that I am helping save someone's life, or I need to work at a nonprofit because they are doing work that really helps the world. You can definitely find ties in a much more roundabout way than that and still figure out that you're doing something that's really helpful. As an example, in my last job, I did marketing for some small businesses, and one of them was a real estate company, and I went into work every day feeling happy that I was putting this real estate company's name in front of people who would then use that company to find their dream home, which would enhance their life. So while it doesn't sound super appealing to be like, oh yeah, I do marketing for a real estate company, you can definitely make the tie to show, yes, I am doing something that is super worthwhile and really does help people. So that's about that. Thank you all for listening. If you have any topics that you would love to hear us cover, feel free to DM Talent409 or Sweat with Stods on Instagram. Shoot us those ideas. We're always happy to hear what other people think. If you have additional thoughts, feel free to rate and review and subscribe through whatever channel you listen to these podcasts on. And Colin will be back Monday with a regularly scheduled guest episode. Oh, and it's the 100th episode, so there will be some fun and exciting surprises and promotions around that. And until next time, take it easy.